Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this channel, EdMask, the channel for education, learning, and development. And I welcome you all to this channel. And today I'm going to talk about why students protest. Is it discipline or is it cryout? What is students' unrest? Students' unrest is a widespread collective discontent by students towards their educational institutions or social issues that impact them. And when we talk about this content, we are looking at dissatisfaction with the status quo within the school. And then the issue also when we talk about is collective. A collective action is students act as a group to voice their concerns. And some of the methods that students use in this kind of school unrest is kind of the destructive method is protest and demonstrations where they organize public gathering to express their opinions or opposition. But also there's occupation of buildings as one of the destructive methods. They take over the school facilities or the institutional facilities. But also there's also the issue of boycott and strikes, where students refuse to attend classes or participate in school activities or institutional activities. We have also violence and vandalism, where we look at extreme cases involving violence and also destruction of property. What are the causes of students' unrest? The causes of students' unrest would go as far as educational, could be institutional, could be social political issues, but also could be psychological factors arising from anger to improve the world. Come up at this moment to look at this issue. Why this issue? What are the causes? What are the consequences? And then also what can be done. Also look at building resilience and constructive engagement. I beg my followers to work with me in discussion, to bring out the focus, to bring out the key points. Why are there causes? What are the causes? What are the causes of students' unrest? And one of the things that we need to look at the poor communication between school administration and the student. If there is no good communication between the students and then the administration, that can cause school unrest. Because the best way to handle a situation is to have a mutual understanding, is to have a better way you can communicate, is to put grounds where you communicate and all understand what is going on within the institution, within the school environment. Teachers, work with me in this. There is an issue of harsh disciplinary measures where students are being harshly disciplined. They're given difficult punishments to handle. And once they're given these difficult disciplinary measures, they find themselves unable to do what is told them to do, and then they end up causing unrest. There's poor learning environment. The poor learning environment is one of the things that also brings school unrest. Here, you look at bad meals, or we look at overcrowded dormitories, we look at lack of resources. I'll give you an example. If you don't have enough seats in the class and the class is crowded, what would you expect of your learners? Would you think they will thank you? They can't, because they paid their fees. Remember, the students you are teaching in your class are your clients, and they pay you to do a job through their parents. So if they don't get what is due for them, it can cause school unrest and poor meals, among many other things that you can mention as teachers, as parents. Another thing I also need to talk about is pressure from academics and limited counseling services also causes school unrest. When students find pressure towards their academics, they get lost, they get anxiety, they get no any other place to run to, and they resort to unrest. Did you know that students who don't want to study get more or much involved into school unrest? Do you know that some of them who don't want to study, those who waste a lot of time not reading their books, they are the major causes of school unrest, and some of them intend to sponsor some of these kind of campaigns, or maybe influence the rest of the students to follow them. Have you ever thought that you need to give them when they come to seek counseling, you need to give them quick counseling than waiting them to do more or to do worst that is unexpected of them? Parents, have you ever known, teachers, have you ever known that external influence is also another thing that brings school unrest? For example, peer pressure is something that causes school unrest, among which we also have social media, that our students have so much exposure to social media and they learn too much. They learn much of social media, from social media, and this impacts their performance sometimes, but also influences them into acts of social unrest. There's community politics. Students get into community politics, and then this community politics eats their mind, and then at the end of the day, cause school unrest. In this sense, we need to know these causes and find a way we can handle, find a way we need to combat this kind of school unrest that come to eat our schools. Why do students get involved in school strikes or protests? Why do students get involved into strikes or protests? The desire to be heard. The causes of students' unrest are many, and among which we are looking at is the desire to communicate between the school administration and the students. Schools need to put a clear way, put means of which they can be able to communicate with their students. Without clear communication, without clear feedback, without clear response, there will always be school unrest in school. So teachers, administrators of institutions, you need to know communication is very key within the school and within the parents. We also look at harsh disciplinary measures put in schools. Some students cannot stand the pressure, disciplinary measures that are put in school. Particularly, it could be even when it is collective punishment, even when it is a one-person disciplinary measure, when it is a disciplinary measure taken on one person, the students can always come out and cause unrest, depending on the unjustification that is being taken on a particular case. Cases in schools need to be taken collectively, need to be studied, need to be analyzed, and look at what could be the effect, what are the effects of this disciplinary measure. The measures should be friendly measures, they should not be harsh measures of punishment. So without better disciplinary measures, school unrest will always continue and will impact the performance of our schools. There is poor learning environment, among which there is bad meals, uncooked proper meals. There is overcrowding of schools. There's lack of enough space for students to have a proper learning environment. There's also lack of resources, limited resources for students for each and every student to share or have resources that are enough for them within the class. Imagine you're teaching a biology class, you have tubes to use, but then the tubes are not enough. And this is happening each and every class. So that means the students will not be able to get service, could not be able to get time to do their practicals within a particular class or time. So lack of resources impacts the students' performance, but also can cause school unrest or strikes at school. There's also pressure from academics and limited counseling services. First of all, we need to have counseling services in schools. You're all aware counseling services are demanded for any person, for any client. Someone is not just pushed into counseling. Someone demands for counseling. So if the students come for guidance, they come for consultation, they ask for counseling, why don't you give them the counseling? You need to. So if when you give them the counseling, then that means you're doing your job and you're doing it well. You're reducing on the pressure. There would be pressure for students to go into, to act weird, to go into certain school unrest or school unrest. So make sure pressure on academics is reduced from students by talking to them, by counseling them. But also, you need to know that most of the counseling, most of the pressures that are in school, most of the issues that are coming in school and school unrest, most of them are being caused by the students, by weak students who don't want to learn. Those who go out for happenings, those who go for clubs, those who do any funny things. At the end of the day, when they feel they cannot be able to bring out their performance well in school academics, then they organize those kind of groups to be able to participate into strikes. So counseling is very key in this, but also I think that parents, teachers need to know is the external influence. Peer pressure could be from other schools, could be from the school around, from the school environment. Social media itself is causing school unrest, but community politics. Students tend to get into this community politics around the school environment. Because also need to know, at this point I can also talk about the school environment. The school environment, dear parents and teachers, the school environment is the circumference of the school, but also the school environment encompasses the community around the school. So when talking about school environment, mind you, if you're handling a school, you need to know you're handling also, you have to build a relationship between the school and the environment. So if there's some politics outside of the school gate, outside of the school gate, the conflict within the community can eat up your school, and that conflict can be run into your school, and then that conflict might cause a school unrest, so long as your students get involved into that kind of conflict or pressure within the community. So those are some of the causes that one need to look at and control before it becomes a problem to the school. But also we need to know, as parents, teachers, why do students get involved in strikes and protests? It's good each and every person does his own role as a teacher, as a parent, and as a student. Because if leaders within the schools, leaders within the institutions, if we don't get back to our roots, get into our roles, reflect on what we are meant to pass on, reflect on what we were meant to share the students, then you're not doing our work well. Because the students' unrest can be caused by your acts as an individual. as a leader, as an administrator. I won't go into details what type of administrator one could be, but your individual character as a leader can impact or cause school unrest if you looked at yourself. You need to evaluate yourself each time you handle your students. Now, why should students get involved? One of the things that cause students get involved into school unrest, desire to be heard when dialogue channels fail or are closed. Students have a guild, council, they have a prefectoral body, they write a communication to the administration. The communication is stated on. There's no response. So what if you don't give them a response, an immediate response? If you don't show them that maybe you're consulting or maybe you're looking into this, you give them feedback, then that unrest is called for to make sure they are heard, that their voices are being raised. And you'll be blamed for that because they always tell you, we did this, talked about this, and then talked about this, but we were never heard. The reaction to perceived injustice or unfair treatment is something we need to look at as teachers and parents. Because if the treatment in a school is selective, let's say a particular class A or particular class B is treated differently, or maybe members or students in the class are treated separately, indiscriminatively, then that means that could lead into chaos, and that chaos or that kind of treatment, unfair treatment, will always cause unrest. Influence of group mentality, that mental thinking, that mental belief that everyone is doing it, why not me? The students who keep on following others, so and so is doing this, I will also do it. After all, they're not talking or maybe speaking about it, and we have always talked about this as students, and no one is coming out. So if everyone is doing it, let me do it. That impacts and causes school unrest. So every student would feel to be part of the school unrest or protest, and it pushes them to get involved because of a few things that we've limited or we've taken time to solve. I understand some of the things you might not be able to solve them immediately, but remember we talked about communication, and as you communicate, a few students in the institution get to understand you better, and they always get to your side, and then you move on or move forward without any more pressure. The lack of emotional coping mechanisms. Some students have lacked emotional coping mechanisms. Someone did an exam, or someone did an exam, he failed. Someone came late at school, he did a beginning of term exam, what you call board. Now, the beginning of term exam is one of the results that are meant to be at the end of the report. You've not provided remedials for those who have come late. You've not provided remedials for those who have gotten sick, or maybe who are sick at home, maybe who are sick and still at home. Now, you're making reports and the students are missing the beginning of term exams. And that's the report you are giving me as a parent. Because because my daughter or my son came late to school after maybe after 2-3 days, and the exams were done at the beginning of the term. So you are providing a report with an average of beginning of term, mid-term, and end of term. So you're giving me an average of report showing me that my son didn't do mid-term, and you're making it equatorial for either passing or making equatorial for good performance, not looking or making a flashback where this person come late. Was it because of school fees? Mind you, as students, mind you, as parents, mind you, as teachers, you want students to come at school with the school fees. So if my daughter has not got school fees yet, if my son has not got school fees yet, and I miss a day or 2 days or a week, why should the students do exams at the beginning of the term, like 1-2 days before the rest come in? And then when they miss, you make it as a punishment for them not to have marks for beginning of a term, as you make your average of the 3 exams: mid-term, beginning of term, mid-term, and then end of term. So in other words, you're punishing the student for coming late, you're punishing the parent for bringing the students late, but not knowing you needed school fees, or which sometimes you need 70% of the school fees, and then at the end of the day, you want me to pay all the fees while you never gave an examination beginning of term remedial to my daughter or son or someone's daughter elsewhere in a school. So in other words, some pupils or some students in institutions get coping mechanism to handle, to see that they can bring out issues for you leaders to listen to. But through pressure, another thing I also need to talk about, lack of emotional mechanisms. I told you most of the students, I'm repeating it, most of the students that get involved into strikes, most of them are students that have not put in more effort into their studies, and like they want to make sure that everyone loses, or maybe they can also get some time to sit down and do some reading. That's why you see most of some universities, when towards the exams, universities are closed because some students are not ready yet to do the exams at that particular time. And once they strike, then it means they're striking, they're causing an unrest. You give them a break of 2-3 weeks, they read their books and then come back and do exams. So that's one of the issues that students find themselves coping through, and that's how the students cope. Some of them, they use, okay, so that's why students get involved into strikes. Sometimes they need more time for them to read. Sometimes they have not covered enough, and they want to put that kind of unrest for you to give them a break. It helps them anyway, but it's not the best way possible one could take on. Teachers, parents, you need to know that there are consequences of school unrest. As I've discussed the causes and the rest of the things that come with the students' unrest, you realize that school unrest, destruction of school property is rampant because the students will destruct everything. They could crash the windows, they could burn the dormitory, they could do anything, any funny thing, and that impacts the school financially and mentally, as for other students who might not be involved into this strike. There is also academic disruption, loss of time, examination counselling. Remember, I talked about some students get involved into the strikes to buy time for them to read, because they have spent a lot of time not reading, doing their funny stuff. So one of the consequences that comes with this is academic disruption. You lose time, first of all, but also some examinations are cancelled. And once they are cancelled, then you need to reschedule. You need to reschedule to make sure that you go by the periods. So there is injuries or loss of life in extreme cases. You've seen students dying at school. Some of them are being shot, some of them are being burnt, some of them are burnt in dormitories, some of them are being shot by the security that comes to cool down the unrest. So school unrest are not a blessing. It's not peace. No one could call for school unrest for any management. And remember, there is also criminal records or expulsion that affect students' futures. Some students are caught into criminal acts because of school unrest, but also their expulsion. Some students are expelled. Some of them will never go back to school for all their life. Some of their future is strangled because of the strike. Sometimes it's because of our negligence. We as parents, we as teachers, not giving in much time to talk to our students. But then so I'm looking at also at the issue of what can be done to prevent this. You as a parent, me as a student, but also me as a leader, an institutional leader, a headmaster, a principal, senior woman teacher, director of studies, class teacher. What can we do? One of the things we need to do is strengthen students' leadership. Make sure there's a students' council. Make sure there's a suggestion box. And that suggestion box should be opened and look through the issues that are being suggested by the students. Because their outcry could have been through the suggestion box. Their outcry could have been through the students' council. So if you don't give them a chance, if you don't give them the opportunity to listen to them, then you're losing out the cards. I'm telling you, you're losing out the cards. Then you also need to foster open dialogue between the students, teachers, and the administration. The trio need to be the parents. Because remember, the parents could be outside of the school environment. I mean, the out of the gate. But I remember I told you there is that political influence that might come into your school. But majorly, the key people we need to look at, the key players in the school are the students, teachers, and then the administration. The trio have to be understanding each other and have to be supported so that their work can be properly run or can be properly be operational by understanding the situation that is within the school and help them to have a good working environment. We need thirdly, we are looking at improving the conditions. A case, the meals at school needs to be improved. Our sanitation facilities need to be improved. Academic support. Teaching alone in a class is not enough because not all students can understand in a class whatever you taught. So consultation is okay. Can you let the students come and consult you and then give them the support? Do support they are demanding for? Should not be give and take, that is business. So as for me, I would think the trio need to make sure they have a good working environment. You need me as a student, I need you as my teacher, I need you as my administrator. Not forgetting that a school looks like its administrators. So the administrators might give a blind eye. My head teacher, my principal, my administrators you might give a blind eye. But then when school unrest comes, they're going to attach it to you as an administrator because you failed to solve the problem when it was still at a lower level. You should not be waiting. We need to train teachers in emotional intelligence and conflict management. That's a very good course that one could take on as teachers. Emotional intelligence. How would you read someone's psychology? How do you read the personality of someone? How do you understand someone's status at a look? How would you know that the student is not stable at this time? How would you avoid the conflict before it accumulates? How can you help in times of conflict? In other words, overall, all teachers need to be trained in emotional intelligence and also conflict management, so that you can be able to manage the conflict, but also to support the students, the learners who need that kind of emotional support, so that they can know that they are at school, they need you need them, and then they should not use their emotional disturbances to disturb the school environment, because it disrupts everything, all good working environment at school. Fifthly is we need to provide counseling. One, we need to provide mentoring, but also we need to have peer support programs. The peer-to-peer programs, the learner-to-learner, we can use the school council, but also we can use mentorship, because we have the senior women teachers, we have the doors, all those people are skilled. They can always come in to help our learners. As I wind up, we need also to look at building resilience and positive engagement. Resilience is the ability to withstand challenges, the way you manage the problems, the conflicts, anything that come across your life, the anxiety, the depression that comes with the depression that comes with anxiety, long anxiety, the way you manage that is what we call resilience, the ability to withstand the challenge, the emotional challenges that come across your life. And the way we can do it is encourage constructive ways to express grievances. For example, schools should have debates. Schools should have clubs. Schools should have forums. And these school debates, these school clubs, these forums need to be supported and guided by the administration, and that gives it a plus. So in other words, resilience is how you cope. To avoid this, in other words, we need to have debates, clubs, and forums. And those forums should make sure that we facilitate them so that they can work to their expectations. Second, we need to make sure that teach conflict resolution and negotiation skills. Can we teachers bring in an element within the teachers themselves as peers, and then within the students, at least the students' council, to find a way they can resolve conflicts amongst themselves? Can we teach conflict resolution and negotiation skills within schools amongst teachers and also the students? Could be the students' leadership, because in some instances you find the students' leadership are conflicting with the teachers, or maybe the students' leadership is conflicting with the students, and then the students are rioting against the students' leadership. Which students' leadership would be speaking on behalf of the overall students? So we need to have this kind of training in our schools, in our institutions, to make sure that we put our schools at an upper age for all of us. They also need to celebrate students' achievements and recognize efforts. Those who have done well in the school should be recognized so that others can also look up to them and be able to emulate them. And also, the achievements should be pronounced within the schools so that everyone can know the achievements that are being done in our schools. Lastly, we'll look at fostering culture of respect and accountability for the stakeholders. Can we make sure that we foster the culture of respect and accountability? Respect the students. The students in any way are meant to respect the teachers. Against that, you're creating a problem. There should be accountability of all stakeholders. And when I'm talking about stakeholders, I'm meaning the students themselves. I'm looking at the teachers. I'm looking at the parents. I'm looking at the school environment, the community. I'm looking at government. If it's a government school. I'm looking at the executive directors of the private schools. All those are key stakeholders. The school nurse, the matron, the askar, the gatekeeper. All those are key people that need to give accountability. There's no reason. I will give you an example. You are the director of studies. Our graduation is by 2 or by midnight, everyone has to be in the gates of the school. Because you're a director of studies, you are coming late beyond, maybe at 2. You found the askar maybe asleep. And then you blame the askar for not being at the gate. Maybe he's moving around the school patrolling and he's not at the gate at that particular time. Now you make a crash. The policy says at midnight everyone should be into the gate. You came to, you're complaining about the askar. The askar says at 2 I'm not at the gate. At 2 I'm patrolling the classes, I'm patrolling the school environment. So you get that crash. Why I'm bringing this is to look at the issue of respect. It could be another issue, but think of any issue. Which issue could bring in the element of respect amongst across board? As I'm recapping, I'm looking at what do you think is the best way to stop unrest in school? Thank you for listening in. Thank you for following me. Those who haven't followed me, subscribe, like, and share. This is Edmask, your channel. Bye.